I've just made a video to Tory and Lib Dem voters of a certain income range. So this video, which I'm hoping will be a bit shorter, is basically aimed at people who are presently in the income brackets above £100,000, who are living quite comfortably off in Britain right now, and aren't struggling at all the same way as the vast majority of British citizens. But please be aware that if you continue supporting, by and large, which you do, and contributing to parties like the Tory party or even the Lib Dems, because they are nothing but a stopgap between Labour. That is all they are. They're there to absorb the aspiring Tory vote. That's it, really. Or Tories that, can't quite stomach themselves to vote Labour. But we need to forget the politics. The politics are a facade now. What we've got a choice is between criminals, complicits, or human beings, or a variety of independents. Okay, so Labour now actually is human. We've got a human being. He's not a corporate entity at all. We've got somebody who's law-abiding, with integrity, upholds human rights, is not a communist, wants to re-establish democratic socio-capitalism in Britain as was established after World War II, as has been slowly demolished, starting with Thatcher and then ending now with Boris, who could take us into another 5 years, a hard Brexit. And I'm going to explain to you why it is going to be really bad for you people. You are now, they've taken away the bottom rungs, okay? Now they're coming for you. Because we're talking about a levelling, you see. We're talking about a levelling here. And so the first thing that I explained in my previous video was that, a pound dropping to 50p and then 25p, which is what I think will happen, that ultimately the pound in your pocket today will, by the end of 5 years of another Tory government, through Brexit and various other shenanigans, turning Britain into a tax haven, etc., your pound will be worth only 25p. So that means if you're on 100 grand a year now, you will be in real terms living on the equivalent of the kind of lifestyle that people on 25 grand have now, you see. That's what it means, because we're talking about World Trade Organization, their prices, global trade prices. So if our pound is worth 25p against the dollar, it's going to be really bad. So that's one way. You see, that's why I'm saying, forget about the few grand extra taxes that you might have to pay under Labour government. Think about exactly how your wage will be literally slashed and then slashed again, right? But that's not the only way that you will lose money. The other way that you will lose money is by loss of the NHS. Now, I know a lot of people who are on over 100 grand a year have private health insurance, but private health insurance is very cheap in this country compared to America, because it's heavily subsidised by the NHS. But once the NHS is privatised, I tell you now, you will be paying thousands for your medicines, for your treatment, a lot more. You will be facing the same problems that people in America face, who 68% of all bankruptcies in America are through sudden illness and medical bills, and that's people with insurance. Okay, so that's another way that you'll be paying. The other way you'll be paying is your properties, houses that you might have mortgages on. Maybe you've got a couple of buy-to-lets or things like this, okay, that your mortgage, your house price will fall by 6% after Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, but 20% in a worst-case scenario. So basically, you know, if you've got a mortgage and you've borrowed, say, 80 grand to buy this house and you're paying so much off a month off the interest, which amounts to your mortgage, and then suddenly your house is only worth, what, 60 grand. It's 50 or 60 grand, but you're paying a mortgage on 80 grand. And you won't be able to put your rent up because your tenants just won't be able to afford it. Because, you know, they're not earning anyway. Don't forget, they'll be suffering the impacts of a weak pound as well. Because prices will skyrocket. Like I say, what costs £1 now will cost £4 when the pound is worth only 25p on the world market, and we're buying produce through the world market. What we used to get for £1, what we used to get for 25p will now cost us £1. And the other way that you know, we will be losing money is through the Banking and Building Society bail-ins, which they've got planned, which has been legislated for. The richest people, the people with savings, the bank will just bail in. It will just take money out of your account. A building society bail-in, maybe they'll own a part of your property all of a sudden. Because that's what a bail-in is about. Check it out. I'll leave a link under this, the government bail-in legislation. And all of this to protect the overseas territories, which are crown territories, tax havens. That's what Brexit is all about. Nothing else, for nobody else. We're talking about the 1% of Britain, that's it. Everybody will suffer. Don't think because you're on the high income that, oh yeah, you know, we'll be all right. You will not be all right. If you consider all right living the life that you've got now, under Corbyn, you might have to pay a little bit extra in taxes, but at the end of the day, you're going to get a lot of benefits from that. You're going to get a health service, a top quality health service. You're going to be living in a happier, brighter society with less crime, a humane society, a stable, lawful, law-abiding, ethical, conscientious and compassionate society. Everything, as I say, what we established after World War II. But otherwise you are going to be under corporate communism, because that's what it amounts to. Except it's not the state, it's your global criminal cabal who've delivered this banking crisis, who committed such crimes that the whole banking system collapsed because of their fraud, their theft, their money laundering schemes. And they want to turn Britain now into a tax haven, you see. They want out of the EU because the EU's brought legislation in now to bring these tax havens into check. That people aren't allowed just to funnel money into tax havens out of the EU without paying their taxes. And the Crown, which is a corporation, wants to protect its overseas territories. There you go, look, Tories, territories. That's who the Tories are serving, the Crown and her territories. Okay? And that's what they're going to reduce our currency to. The Crown. What the Crown was, pre-decimalisation, before we entered the EU. What was a crown? It was worth 25p. That's what they're going to turn. The British pound is going to be a crown. Okay, that's going to be our currency. No, not the pound, the crown for us plebs. And everybody's a pleb. If you're not a millionaire, if you're not a multimillionaire, you're a pleb, according to them, and the way they will treat you and the care they will show you. Like I say, from 100 grand to living a 25 grand style life. At least you won't be destitute on the street. But how long will it be before you get to that point? And it does, it all adds up, doesn't it? Crown territories, Crown tax havens, delivering a Brexit to help the Crown, the Tories protecting them, serving their interests, lying to the public, even lying to the Queen, because the Queen isn't the Crown. The Queen is the royal family. She's the flesh and blood that gets to sit on the throne. The Crown is controlled. It's a corporate entity. But it is about right, isn't it? That, you know, that's what they say. Yeah, you know, we'll leave the EU, so we'll abandon decimalisation, according to them. Then they're not going to come out and tell us. But that is what we'll be at. We will be at a crown economy. And that will be the leading unit of currency. The crown. Except, yeah, it'll be a pound, but it'll only be worth a crown. To all intents and purposes, it will be a crown. Our pound will be a crown. Because our sovereignty has been erased. The crown is sovereign. And the crown is protecting its tax havens from the EU. Because the EU would be able to get into the crown's tax havens through its legislations on taxes. You see? But Britain, well, I can't say Britain because it's got nothing to do with the vast majority of British people. We're talking about the Crown, a corporation. I think it's registered in New York. Okay. And who's Brexit going to deliver us to? Oh, New York, yeah, back to America. I tell you now, you know, that is why for this election, everybody, I plead with you, please vote Labour. If you've got any sense at all, any sense, you will vote Labour. Lib Dems, sorry. As I've written under my previous video I've made, you know, Jo Swinson, what has she done to deserve a place at number 10 as Prime Minister of this country? What has that woman done? What has she achieved in her life? I mean, when you compare her to Jeremy Corbyn, a political veteran who's devoted his life to humanity, human rights, caring about the environment, standing up against racism, against anti-Semitism, and look at the level of attack that is endured from the corporate press, all serving the Crown territories, all employed now like a little army of people that they've bought with their illicit money that they've stolen and robbed and murdered for and plundered. The plunderers of earth they have in their tax havens, and they want to protect them, and they're lying to people and dividing people and causing such despair, despondency, depression. Life is meant to be a delight. The only people that are getting any delight out of life at the moment are these fascist crown worshippers, the gold worshippers, the criminals. They are delighting in their crimes. But for the vast majority of us, it isn't a delight, is it? It's basically, you know, what the saying is, oh, well, we've got a gun, so we can do what we like, because we're big and powerful, and you're not. We'll shoot you if you stand up against us. Because, you know, if Johnson does get back in and they get this Brexit, I tell you, there'll be no protests, because we'll be under martial law. So, look, I've just explained it as it is. I hope that people take note, that they listen. Otherwise, we are screwed. Literally screwed. Say goodbye to democracy. Say goodbye to your rights. Say goodbye to everything. Just say hello to austerity on steroids and what amounts to absolute insanity.